Hey there, YouTube. It is Crypto Diesel back with another video. Today, I wanted to talk about investment strategies, creating a portfolio of different cryptocurrencies. I think that it's always interesting to get people's takes on the best way to go about investing in cryptocurrencies, mostly because it is such a new asset class. You know, it is not necessarily something that you treat the same way that you maybe treat your stocks or your mutual funds or, you know, your IRA or anything like that. I think hearing people's philosophy on going about trying to invest, trying to diversify, trying to hedge risk, I think is just really interesting to hear about. And so this is kind of my take on how I've been going about investing in my cryptocurrencies to date. I have to say that I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not meant to be necessarily financial advice. It's more so just my opinion and just, you know, my understandings to date. So, you know, I think that you're going to always get, when you watch these videos, you're pretty much always going to get people saying you should just go ahead and invest in Bitcoin, right? Like, I think that the first mover advantage for Bitcoin is so tremendous and so powerful that it's going to be difficult for me to imagine that it gets dethroned in any sort of meaningful sense, mostly because it has already established the sort of name versus genre type of thing. Like when you say, "Oh, I'm going to look up something on the internet," what you usually say is, "I'm going to Google it." Or when you're going to watch a bunch of shows, you're going to say, "Oh, I'm going to sit down and Netflix for a bit." Or, you know, there's a thousand different examples of that first mover sort of just dominating and establishing the network effect. And so now when people think of cryptocurrencies and they think about getting into this space, they're like, well, what is this Bitcoin? How do I get the Bitcoins, right? And so considering that there is going to be a massive flock of people coming, especially in 2018, and that's kind of their first question. It's like, well, what is Bitcoin, right? It's not like, oh, what is a cryptocurrency? They want to know what Bitcoin is. And I think that first mover advantage is always going to be there, and it's something that you can invest in no matter what. I know it's high right now. It's actually been correcting a little bit, so it's hovering between 13 and 15,000 per Bitcoin. That being said, I think you put in however much you want, and I think it'll grow. I think it's never going to be that bad of an investment, at least not for the next couple years. So I would just say get started with some Bitcoin. And then to offset that, go over and get some Ethereum as well. Ethereum, I think, also has a really bright future. And, you know, it serves such a different purpose than what Bitcoin serves. Ethereum is a network. It's a completely different blockchain, and it is allowing people to create smart contracts and decentralized applications on top of it. And so that's the majority of the cryptocurrencies that you see out there are built on top of the Ethereum network. And that's been kind of like their killer app this year, has been all of these people coming up with different cryptocurrencies and tokens and coins that have all these different use cases, but they're building them on top of the Ethereum network. And so I think that inherently adds value to Ethereum and Ethers as a coin, because, you know, whenever you have an ICO start up, you'll basically send an Ether and you'll get a certain amount of whatever the new token is in exchange. Like, Ether is sort of like the reserve currency for all the related Ethereum decentralized applications. So I think Ethereum is a good way to hedge your bet against Bitcoin. And it's the second mover. It is sort of like what some people call the spiritual successor to Satoshi Nakamoto's Bitcoin effort. You got Vitalik Buterin, who's actually somebody we can see and follow and know. And he's super smart. He's alien smart. He's just a crazy Russian, like probably 25-year-old dude now, but he is a genius. And so they have a great development team. They're figuring out a lot of solutions for their scalability. They're going to be moving to proof of stake here, I think, in 2018. They have a lot of other projects on the horizon, like Casper and sharding and all this other stuff that I think will really be the tale will be told in 2018 to see whether or not they're really going to be able to address some of the issues that people have been pointing at and that they're legitimate. I mean, they can't run CryptoKitties without their entire network being congested. And if CryptoKitties is the most that they can handle, then they're going to be in for a rude awakening whenever like a really actually super important decentralized application starts getting a lot of looks. So you got to have those two, right? I like to find other coins that help me to both support but also kind of hedge against those bets. So for instance, with Ethereum, it's established, it's been there so long, everyone believes in it, but it has been having a lot of congestion and it has been kind of slow, and it is still a proof of work mining mechanism. And Cardano is a top 10 cryptocurrency that has recently kind of rocketed up, at least in the market cap sense, and it is kind of going to challenge Ethereum for that same spot because it will be a proof of stake consensus mechanism, and it's made actually from one of the dudes that's the same. He was also a founder of Ethereum, and so I think aside from a couple of other things, that will be a nice sort of bet or hedge against the Ethereum network, right? That allows you to where if Cardano comes on the block and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this shit is awesome, I'm going to be using this from now on, screw Ethereum. If all that money flows out of Ethereum, if you hedge your bet and go in with Cardano, then you're playing both sides and you can benefit both ways. And then I do the same thing kind of with Litecoin to Bitcoin. I hate Bitcoin Cash, not because of the technology, or I don't really know that much about the developers. I just know that I really dislike Roger Ver. His presence has not impressed me at all as a leader of that organization or of that effort. And the fact that like he just does so many shady things that were just completely ripped off of Satoshi Nakamoto. He didn't even use a clever brand for Bitcoin Cash. It's just the same. It's literally the exact same thing as Bitcoin. He bought Bitcoin.com and never really makes it clear that when you're on Bitcoin.com, you're actually going to be transacting with Bitcoin Cash. He's just shady. He talks shit about Andreas Antonopoulos. Don't get me started on Bitcoin Cash, all right? I'm not going to talk about Bitcoin Cash because I'm not going to get in on it. I probably could make a shit ton of money. I'm sure it's going to have a bright future ahead of it, but that is one where I'm going to flex my social kind of conscious dollar and say, no, I'm not going to support this because Roger Ver is a dick. Instead, I'm going to go with Charlie Lee, and I'm going to go with Litecoin because Charlie Lee is just as an open book, and I really just trust him. He's a long-established dude. He's, in his 40s. He's super smart, and he has always kind of just positive, uplifting tweets and information about Litecoin. And, he recently sold off all his Litecoin, and everyone's like, oh, he sold off all his Litecoin, cashing in, huh? Doesn't believe in the project. It's like, no, dude. He clearly states that he did it to lack having a conflict of interest, which I actually think will mean that he's getting that advice from one of the major partnerships that I think that Litecoin is going to have in 2018. He's already literally said this, like after having dumped all his Litecoin onto the market, he has been able to kind of create tweets that are a little bit going to influence the price a little bit more because he feels like he doesn't have a conflict of interest anymore. And he already clearly stated that there is going to be a major partnership in the works that is like a household name. And some people speculate it's Facebook. It would be dope if it was like Amazon or something. But all that being said, like I like going in on Litecoin because it's faster than Bitcoin. Its transactions are its fees are so much, they're almost non-existent compared to Bitcoin. It has cool branding that is similar to Bitcoin and kind of has this, sisterly little brother mentality to Bitcoin. So it's kind of like a hedge with Bitcoin, but also betting with Bitcoin, right? Outside of those, I'm also really into Cardano, or I'm also really into Ripple. It took me a while to get into Ripple because there is this big stink on Ripple because it is a use case for banks to be able to transact with each other. If I'm a bank in Iowa and I need to transact with a bank in Japan, I would have to go to my central bank and then go to some like international Nostro account, and then that interfaces with the other bank's international Nostro account, which then would have to go to the Japanese central bank, and then and it's like basically the Ripple XRP coin and just the Ripple net, which is Ripple is actually a company. They've created a network that allows banks to peer-to-peer transact with each other without having to go through all that rigmarole. And so it's super valuable. It's super fast. They have like 1,500 transactions per second, which just blows all other cryptocurrencies out of the water. And it's not even a blockchain-enabled technology as far as I understand. My research told me that it is not a blockchain technology. It is just on the Ripple net, right, which is just a network that was developed by this company. And so it's almost like a bet against blockchain, right? I'm hedging the bet that maybe blockchain doesn't work out. Maybe it's not going to be the end-all be-all as far as like the super disruptive network effect technology that everybody jumps on with. And so it's nice to kind of hedge that way. And it's also nice to hedge in the sense that I'm not completely betting that the entire fiat currency just goes to shit, right? If banks are still around, then that means that Ripple's probably going to be doing well because they're a first mover and they're really going to be providing them a good chance to really knock off a lot of the transaction fees that those banks have. Another one that I'm interested in is IOTA. IOTA is also a hedge against the blockchain because it functions via the Tangle, which is kind of like a different philosophy for cryptocurrencies. I think the idea is that when you make a transaction, you're also going to be verifying 2 other transactions before it. And it allows it to conceptually, it's a prototype right now, conceptually be infinitely scalable. And as more network effect is established, as more nodes come onto the network and more people are verifying more transactions, it actually becomes quicker. There's no costs, right? It's infinitely scalable. And they even think it's quantum proof. Quantum computers are going to be crazy decryptors, right? They're going to be able to decrypt with a sophistication that we can't even imagine. So I think, the fact that they are coming up with a solution with that up front is pretty huge. And so it's just another way for you to hedge against the Bitcoin bet, right? All of these ones that are going to be doing something similar to Bitcoin, find ones that have different use cases that were developed by different people because they were seeing the shortcomings of maybe Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever, and put a little in those, man. You can never go wrong just doing your research, and if one really strikes you as really interesting, just going for it, and maybe not breaking the bank on it, but at least speculating enough to where if it does well, then you're going to do well. So that's kind of my philosophy. I'll probably have some more in and out kind of videos where I talk about this kind of stuff. But for now, I kind of just wanted to share how I'm going about making my crypto portfolio. It's mostly going to be in the big dogs, and I'm also investing in the littler guys just to hedge and to have some skin in the game if blockchain doesn't end up working out in the end. So that's kind of all I had for today. I'll leave you guys to it. Just hodl, and I will see you next time.